And greetings. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace. He is Todd Erzin. He is Aaron McIntyre. And then, of course, you are you. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox, which you can access by emailing the show, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, Parler, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter and Getter. And you can get clips of the show free of censorship and free of charge at rumble.com/Steve Deace Show as well. We have a typical Thursday show for you. 3 non-political questions coming your way next hour. Also, Theology Thursday. I am calling an audible because we're going to take a 1-week break from our book study of Scott Atlas's A Plague Upon Our House. And it's not just because, frankly, I need one. Right?
It's not really going to be much of a break.
No, it's not going to be much of a break. But in this case, I had an opportunity here over the last 24 hours to interact with a pure, true disciple of the spirit of the age. And I think it's important as a teaching moment to walk you guys through why I reacted the way that I did, who the intended audience is. Because yesterday I had a really good lunch with my pastor, and we sat down and had lunch and just talked about general culture and church stuff for a couple of hours. And one of the points of that private conversation that I think I'm okay sharing with you guys is how the conditions on the ground have changed. And when he first got into the ministry in the 80s, and even when I first got into broadcasting on the full-time on the news side, just in the mid-2000s, 2006 is when I started doing this full-time, when I made the full-time transition from sports. So it'll be 16 years in June. Things have radically, the paradigm was largely the same. We were arguing about objective truth claims. Like a Muslim says, God has no son. A Muslim says Jesus wasn't crucified, therefore he wasn't resurrected. A Muslim says that the angel Gabriel spoke to Muhammad in a cave, not just the Virgin Mary. Right? These are objective truth claims, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Which means both of us are now the truth claims we are asserting are not reconcilable, right? But we are beginning from a place of claimed truth, which means we can then examine the veracity of said claims from there. We're starting from a place of believing that there's truth out there that we claim the mantle for, that we think we have a unique access to, but we are each claiming that there is truth, right?
Not only that, but to your point, I think that it's worth defending, not just
Correct.
manipulating
Correct.
for propaganda means.
I mean, one of the best books I've read in the last 20 years is Paul versus Muhammad. I would highly recommend it. Maybe we should do a book study on that someday. But it's a book about using 3D VR technology to bring both these men kind of back to life as 3D VR images. And then they put them like in the Astrodome, I think is where they put them, and just let them debate each other in front of a nationwide television audience and a sellout crowd. And it's a great book, okay? Here's where we are yet today. There isn't truth, and I don't want there to be. I just want to comply. I just want to follow. Okay? And so from a Christian worldview, we would have looked at Islam as pagan. And by the way, how would they look at us? The same. All right? But the rules of engagement were known, okay? What do you do when it's not pagan but demonic? It's an absence of truth. I don't even want to know. I like being without it, or at least I think that I do. We're going to walk you through that coming up in the next hour of the show. At the bottom of this hour, what in the Sam Hill is going on in the state of Tennessee? I mean, it's just it is a fuster cluck of epic proportions in that state right now, and we will address it here coming up here with an activist on the ground. That's coming up at the bottom of the hour. But before we get to all of that, here is Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Play Groomer Games, win groomer prizes. The Florida Senate yesterday passed a measure that would strip the Walt Disney Corporation of its special self-governing status in and around Walt Disney World in Florida. The move comes after Governor Ron DeSantis issued an order calling for debate of the measure during a special legislative session. The measure will now move on to the Florida House. This is how you win. This, on the other hand, is how you lose. This is National Review's Charles Cook, who said in a tweet, quote, DeSantis and the legislature pushed through a sensible education bill and then stared down Disney's ridiculous, hysterical criticisms. They fought, they won. There's no need for them to salt the earth, take revenge, or make Florida's policies worse. Former Trump attorney Jenna Ellis chimed in as well, saying, Charles Cook is right. Imagine if Newsom was doing this to Chick-fil-A. Policy and law must be fair and reasonable, not vengeful. Disney's stock price has dipped 20% this year, with almost 10% of that dip occurring in the last month. Checking in on MSNBC, here's former George W. Bush advisor Matthew Dowd.
In the Easter holidays, the entire message of the Gospels of the Easter holidays was love one another. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If Jesus Christ was alive today, he would be called a groomer, he would be called woke, and he would be called a socialist.
Elsewhere on MSNBC, here's Nicole Wallace.
And I worry that in covering Glenn Youngkin and his politics of parental choice, all the focus was on how well it worked. And even in our conversations about DeSantis, it's about how well they're serving him. The truth is, dehumanization as a tactic for politics is from war. Dehumanization is a tactic. It's being used right now. The Russians get their soldiers to rape children by dehumanizing them.
Back to Florida, the Department of Health there absolutely smacked the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services after that agency released a so-called fact sheet for guidance in treating gender dysphoria for children. The Florida Department of Health, in their own fact sheet, strongly contradicted the DHS, saying gender transition should not be a treatment option for children or adolescents. Those under the age of 18 should not be given puberty blockers, and gender reassignment surgery should never be a treatment option for children. Instead, Florida is recommending family and children seek counseling from a licensed provider. Jen Psaki, your thoughts?
I'm going to get emotional about this issue because it's horrible. But you know, it's like kids who are bullied, and like all these leaders are taking steps to hurt them and hurt their lives and hurt their families. And you look at some of these laws in these states, and it is going after parents who are in loving relationships, who have kids. It's completely outrageous.
Joe Biden, your thoughts? Moving on, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is having a normal one.
Across the street, we had a police officer on duty, the victim of a hit and run. We have Michigan Avenue, the magnificent miles now referred to as the Mile of Fear. The water tower place has thrown the keys back to the lender. They say they don't want to be in Chicago anymore. Real Chicagoans are asking me, how could you possibly even consider running for re-election as mayor of the city of Chicago after all the harm you've caused?
Well, I disagree with you fundamentally, and I don't think I need to address and dignify your comments 1 second.
Donald Trump did an interview with Piers Morgan for reasons only Allah knows, in a promotion for the interview airing on Piers Morgan's new show. Trump appears to storm off the set after a series of questions regarding January 6th, 2021.
Excuse me.
The most explosive interview of the year.
I don't think you're real. I'm not like very dishonest. Let's finish up the interview.
Morgan versus Trump.
Turn the camera up. Very dishonest.
Audio of the interview was produced by the Trump camp, which showed an otherwise friendly interview where Trump did not actually storm off the set, apparently. And finally, tomorrow is Earth Day. That means it's time to reset a Steve Day show tradition unlike any other.
Deep in the woods of North Carolina, an extremist eco group called Earth First bewails the violation of American nature.
I think we are deeply hurting in America. I think we are deeply craving answers. I think that we've lost our identity as we have evolved into technology and into industrialized society. Bring me to this cathedral. Bring me to those guys. Bring me to this rock that has the most incredible life. That makes me feel alive.
I've looked at clear cuts and burnt forest, and I've felt outraged, but I didn't scream and I didn't cry. And I need to.
And that's what happened while we were away.
Oh, thank you for resetting that. It is indeed an Earth Day tradition unlike any other. Aaron's montage, perhaps never more fittingly, brought to you by My Underwear, otherwise known as our friends over at Tommy John. Indeed. Why not do an underwear commercial after a montage of so many people showing their ass in public? Why not? All right. They need some Tommy John too. It is the absolute best underwear I've ever tried. Okay. And I got a whole spiel here of things I should bring up. Let me just tell you this. Okay. I'm not going to do any of that. Let me just boil it down for you. Often clients, when they want to be clients or they've agreed to be clients, will give me a free sample of their product. Okay. And in this case, this product is so good on at least a half dozen occasions since they came on board about 2 or 3 years ago now. I have gone into my own pocket to order more of it. So I can't give it, I'm sure these details are all great. That's, to me, the best pitch I can give you. I invest my own money in this product. That's how good it is. It's the absolute best underwear out there. They've got stuff for the gals too. You'll have to ask Lindsey Graham about that. But they've got loungewear, all kinds of cool things. If you want to check it out right now, go to TommyJohn.com/Steve and get 25% off. That's the biggest discount we've offered yet. At TommyJohn.com/Steve, 25% off at TommyJohn.com/Steve. Let's get to the montage now. And raise your hand if you believe Jen Psaki was really crying there. That's what I thought. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. So I had not seen that comment from Jenna Ellis. For those of you that don't know who she is, I would imagine a lot of you do. She was one of President Trump's attorneys when he was in the White House. Okay, she's very smart, and frankly, like a lot of the women Trump handpicks, a smoke show and smart. And since that's pretty much every woman Trump picks, that cannot be a coincidence. Are you smart? Are you hot? Apply here. We're not here to hate on that, are we? We're not hating on that. No, not at all. Okay. So, but she's dead wrong. And I had not seen that until just now in the montage. Otherwise, I would have responded to it yesterday. Like, I don't feel the need really to respond to NRO Surrender Caucus people any longer. I just kind of feel like I've moved on from there. You know, like for the most part, that is an outlet that just does not exist to me. I don't, share its work. Even when people I like write guest pieces over there, I don't even share them anymore. I mean, it doesn't exist to me. So I don't really care what Charles Cook thinks. But if MAGA world has a vestige of this sort of surrender now before it's too late in the interest of fairness, then I think that needs to be confronted and stamped out. Amen?
Amen.
So let's do that. Let's do so right now. First of all, the situations, and again, because I'm sure at least one of you is going to, mention to her in some way, shape, or form what I'm about to say. So let me reiterate again. I have a lot of respect for her intellect. I just think she's dead wrong here. I don't think the situations are analogous on any level whatsoever, and here's why. In the case of Chick-fil-A, what was done to them was an attempt to use government to drive them out of business because of their political beliefs. In this case is the DeSantis administration and the Florida legislature attempting to drive Disney out of business. Are they doing that?
No.
No. What are they doing? They're taking away a golden parachute They're taking away favorable treatment that Disney is no longer deserving and was given to them as a company whose business model and values, because they were one and the same, meaning that the values that were their business model that they were communicating to the next generation through accomplished and successful and entertaining popular culture, the state had a vested interest in supporting that because it made for a better citizenry. It made for better people. Disney has now let it be known it's not necessarily down with that clown any longer, right? They've made that pretty clear. So then, therefore, why are they deserving of this sort of extra favored status? They're not. They're not deserving of it. One of the things when I used to teach homeschool academy here in town, the worldview class, the students would ask me, what grade did you give me? And you know what I would always say? I didn't give you a grade. I gave you an assignment. You earned the grade. I wrote down the grade you earned. I've never given a grade. You earned the grade. That applies here in my view. This is sow the wind, reap the whirlwind. Do not be deceived. God will not be mocked. We always reap what we sow. Disney made this decision of its own volition. It could have just kept its mouth shut and probably continued to subversively do content like The Proud Family, and none of this would have ever happened, right? But they didn't choose that. They not only subversively abandoned their original vision of their founder, they are now offensively doing so. They're announcing they're going to do it. In fact, they're weaponizing that fact. They're lobbying for the advancement of these rot gut values. They went to the governor himself to lobby for these things. It's not the same thing at all. Secondly, the reasons that government was seeking to punish each of these corporations aren't even close to morally equivalent. In the case of Chick-fil-A, they were being punished because their original founder reiterated that boys are boys, girls are girls, and the birds and the bees, and they were meant to marry each other and have children. Like one of the top 3 oldest truths in the history of our freaking species. What government is punishing Disney here for is grooming. The promotion of the delinquency of minors. Is that not a crime in all 50 states?
It damn well should be.
The peddling of softcore child porn. Or at least the gateway drug to it. The situations are not analogous. Frankly, the comparison she is making is like if one state executed a serial killer and another state executed a serial thief. And then we were like, you know, it's really not fair that the serial thief got the same treatment. We wouldn't want that. They're not the same. They're not even on the same plane of existence, what's happening here. And all that the legislature and the governor of Florida have done is take away the tax shelter, the regulatory shelter provided by government that makes it easier for Disney to do the business they now want to do. Disney is still now free to go out into the open market and see. As they've lost 10% of their stock value in the last 30 days. They're now free to go out there and find out just how much of a direct market is there for this outside of a Twitter ratio. Good luck to you. But you will not be doing so any longer under the protection of the duly elected government of the state of Florida, because we represent here the people and not the interest of Disney. And I cannot believe Jenna made that case. It's dead wrong. It's not close. There's nothing correct about it at all. It's not analogous at all. Thirdly, we're at war. We are at war. And you do not win a war by dying for your cause, but making the other son of a bitch die for his. George S. Patton. Copyright. How many minds has Disney poisoned or is planning to with that rot gut, sending them to moral and spiritual deaths? Nope. We're not subsidizing that here in Florida any longer. You're on your own. Peace out. They're not the same at all. The situations between Chick-fil-A and Disney aren't the same. There's no merit to that point whatsoever. Don't entertain it for a second.
What's amazing about it to me is that her legal work on behalf of Donald Trump received more pushback on the right from anybody than the likes of David French. Yet here, she is not aware that she basically
took the French position.
She basically said that Drag Queen Story Hour is a blessing of
That's
liberty.
basically
with this
what she's
argument.
saying.
Let me give this straight as well. Maybe it's different for you and the audience. Maybe it's different for you and Todd as well. I only know what the heck a Jenna Ellis is after November, what was it, 5th, whatever it was back in 2020, because of some of the work that she did trying to prove election fraud. And some of the work, good work, at least trying to show prima facie evidence of that. You want to make the case that there are forces in this country that stole, not just poisoned the well, that stole this election, and you think that you can share a country with them.
I know.
No, that's so totally 180 degrees, 90 degrees, whatever you want to call it, incongruent. Those two things cannot be true at the same time.
That's exactly right. The same forces at work in that stole this last election are the same forces at work, Jenna, trying to steal our children's innocence. It's not the same thing. In fact, the argument we ought to be having is whether the state of Florida was punitive enough. It's not vengeance. It's justice.
Here.
You're not entitled to the goodwill of the people of Florida when you want to corrupt and crush and destroy their children, their most precious natural resource. You're lucky the gates to the Magic Kingdom are even open at all today. Furthermore, on a separate matter, Jesus is alive, idiot! That's the point of Easter! Goodness gracious! By the way, Matthew Dowd, you know where he came from? Can you guys guess?
GW.
Yeah.
George W. Bush administration, baby. Same place as Nicole C. Wallace.
I know.
Yeah. My literary agent worked next to her in the White House, as a matter of fact. Okay? Yeah. Same place. And remember when we had to vote for George W. Bush to save America? Remember those days? I remember being on my knees as a baby Christian on the night of that 2004 election, praying that he'd win Ohio and win the presidency and save America as we're getting ready to bring another baby into the country. I'm an idiot.
But all of that just puts even more context into what you just said about Jenna Ellis. Know what time it is. You want to go back to that?
I can't believe I didn't see that. And so you're getting my instant raw reaction. I have no reaction when an irrelevant publication like National Review that just isn't relevant any longer. I don't have any reaction. But if we're going to have someone who has bled and sweat on the front lines on our behalf in the legal arena saying stuff like that, we need to take a time out and make sure we all know what those of us claiming we know what time it is, because the room temperature is about 666 degrees right now. All right, we're playing a game. All right, and it's called Civilization, and it's a steel cage match, and two worldviews are entering here, and only one of them's coming out. I promise you, only one of them is coming out. And I don't know how you prefer to play a game, but I like it when I win. Don't you guys like games better when you win? I like it better when I win. That's what I like. And if I lost and it was fair at the end, do you feel better that you lost fairly? You know, I totally crapped out at the craps table, but it was fair, so I don't feel as bad. Is that how you walk away feeling? No, I like it when I win. Especially given the stakes we're playing for here. The only thing we ought to be debating right now is if they went far enough in Florida. That's what we ought to be debating.
Do you think this was you're doing this in real time, but you like these kind of questions. Do you think this was a test case purposely put out by Trump because of how the public would react to it vis-a-vis his main competitor for the presidency? Is
you think a Trump minion basically trying to bastardize something that makes DeSantis look good?
Something like that.
I hope that's not the case. I don't know because I've never met the woman. I just have admired her work from afar. Okay, so I don't know the answer to that, but I hope that's not the case. I really do.
You wouldn't be shocked if it was, though.
But you know what? Since you went there, let me go there. Is it just me, or when Trump causes drama, it's about Trump? They underestimated my crowd size. They stole I thought they stole the election from us, actually. I thought they stole it from us, not from you, dude. I thought they stole it from us. I didn't think it was about you. I thought it was about us. I thought they stole it from us. Okay. I was treated unfairly. They edited out me deceptively. And frankly, almost everything that he claims they did to him unjustly is true. They pretty much have done all those exact things. But if you notice that when DeSantis causes drama, it's because they're doing things to us unjustly. Have you noticed this?
He doesn't care what people say about him.
Yeah.
He relishes it.
That's exactly right. That's a major difference there. And it's something that I think, frankly, needs to be a lot more important to a lot more of you. I saw somebody who's a friend, and I respect them, tweet out, Trump 24, DeSantis 2028, save America. Guys, I'd like to get to 2024. I can't even contemplate in my mind what America looks like. And what do you think this looks like in 2028?
No idea.
I have no idea.
Actually, I do. On the course we currently are, it's my 2016 prediction about 2017.
Yeah.
It's going to be worse.
Your oldest daughter is about to go to college, and on a given day, you don't know if today's the day they're going to tell her, hey, your scholarship's gone unless you let us poison you. You don't know that, do you?
I don't.
Yeah, my oldest daughter just got proposed to. They're getting married next year. I can't even imagine what we'll be talking about at this time next year or the time next year when they get married. And we're talking about 2028. I need the best person right now. Don't you? Don't you? Or do you need the best show? Now, that doesn't mean Trump's not the best person, but show me you are. Show us you are, not the best show. I don't have time for a show. I need scalps. And so do all of you within the sound of my voice. Scalps on a wall. Body counts in a cultural war grave. That's what we need here. There is a war taking place, not a personality contest. I don't need, you're fired. I need, don't fire until you see the white of their eyes. But then once you do, make sure you fire. That's what I need. And so do you. I don't need any more drama about you, dude. I don't care. We're down here fighting for survival while you're hanging with Lindsey Graham at Mar-a-Lago. Give me a scalp taker, not a drama queen. You know, about 90+% of our lives these days are spent indoors. But a lot of our favorite moments are what happens outdoors. The fresh air, the feeling of peace. Warmer weather is almost here, allegedly, in the Midwest. All right. So let's make the most of it with Outer. They're the new outdoor furniture company with purposely designed furniture to get you outdoors more. They make the most beautiful, comfortable, innovative, and high quality outdoor furniture. And it's all from sustainable materials. And it's the only outdoor furniture with a patented built-in cover to make protecting it effortless, from chairs to fire pit tables. Everything Outer makes has the look and feel of what you'd expect at a 5-star resort. I walked through their catalog with one of their people the other day. I mean, some truly stunning and impressive looking stuff. If you want to check it out for yourself, or if you want to take advantage of that outstanding catalog, get $300 off and free shipping for a limited time right now when you go to liveouter.com/Steve. That's $300 off and free shipping right now when you go to liveouter.com/Steve. Let's bring in an activist on the ground in Tennessee. Gary Humble is here with us from Tennessee Stands. It's good to have you back with us, Gary. It's been a while. How you been, brother?
Yeah, I've been great. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, we got to debut our commercial last time, making fun of the governor's mask commercials.
That's right. I remember that. Yes. So let's just start with a very simple question. What the hell is going on in your state right now, dude?
And that's why I appreciate the time, because look, the headlines will tell you that Tennessee, we have a supermajority Republican legislature, so we're just conservative freedom land over here. And I would say respectively, we are a conservative state when you look at other states. But the truth is, the things that this GOP leadership continues to put forward in our legislature are very, very leftist leaning policies, and including the folks that are moving here from California, which I really consider freedom refugees. They're looking around saying, what the hell are y'all doing? This is what was happening in California 15 years ago. You're on your way to become a blue state really quickly. So, what's happening right now, which we alerted you to, is HB 1201, which is a piece of legislation that essentially is going to silence the voices of grassroots conservative organizations across the state. And you've got organizations like Tennessee Stands, the Tennessee Firearms Association, Americans for Prosperity, the Beacon Center. You've got national organizations like the NRA, CPAC, and the Center for Renewing America have all sent letters and sent messaging to the legislature saying, don't pass this bill. It's unconstitutional, and it's an affront to free speech. And what they're trying to do is specifically regulate 501c4 organizations like Tennessee Stands, who promote social advocacy work on behalf of issues. And they're saying that within 60 days of any election, if we simply mention the name of a political candidate, we now have to register as a PAC and report expenditures and expose our entire donor list to the state of Tennessee. Why? Transparency.
So you guys put out a voter guide, an education effort with no endorsement. This is just, we even interviewed the candidates, and this is where they told us they were, and it's just simple education. We take no position whatsoever. That's all that it is. You now are treated as a political action committee for even doing that.
That's correct. 60 days before an election.
We now, like when most people are paying attention, basically.
When they need to see a voter guide, right? When they need to know how their elected officials voted. So we know this is not about transparency. We affectionately call this the Incumbent Protection Act, or perhaps the Rhino Preservation Act. That's what this is.
So this is a state where, by the way, Blaze Media, we just built studios, ancillary studios out there. That's where our colleague Jason Whitlock lives. The Daily Wire just moved its entire corporate headquarters to your neck of the woods. I believe that's where Clay Travis and Outkick, their corporate stuff is located out there as well. Yeah. And so, but he's a Tennessee native, so he's been there for a while. But in the other two cases, I mean, we were companies looking for a place that looked like a place of, that was going to support freedom. And Daily Wire moved from LA to your backyard as just one example. Now you're telling us that the Republican Party leadership in your state is attempting to put levers in place that allows them to crush the grassroots from holding them accountable to any internal standard whatsoever, basically.
Well, in effect, that's what it's going to do. Their talking point, however, is this. This is really not about squashing the conservative voice or the voice of dissent from what we now know are their establishment policies. I mean, the problem they have is that through COVID, especially since we've gotten vocal with Tennessee Stands, people are now paying attention. People are getting woke, the real kind of woke. They're coming out of their stupor and their slumber, and they're seeing these policies for what they are. And they're seeing, that where you used to think, we're a Republican state, we have nothing to worry about. And they're understanding that that's not the case. And so these folks are worried. It's an election year, and they're concerned. And interestingly, I want to make this point. So about a month ago, I announced my candidacy to run for state senate, and I'm running against our Senate Majority Leader, who's currently my state senator here in Williamson County. So interestingly, what has happened is after I made that announcement, this bill came out. The Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton, went on a radio tour across the state and personally named me by name, Gary Humble, and compared me to George Soros and made this accusation. He says, well, how do we know that Gary Humble is not using Tennessee stands to funnel corporate dark money from his 501c4 into his campaign? So what
you
this
mean?
bill
What
is
would people
really,
like him do, essentially?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, and what people with him do, like him do from out of state money,
Correct. Yeah.
With all of these special interest PACs. We know they do that.
So maybe I'm reaching here, and if I am, slap my hand away, okay? But this seems kind of similar to the whole thing about what's going on in that congressional district in your state, okay?
In the 5th?
Yeah, because what it looks like to me, and again, I got the 10,000 foot view. You're the guy on the ground, so correct me if I'm wrong, okay? What it looks like to me is they had this Trump-anointed carpetbagger woman come in, this Ortega's come in, and they put her on Fox News, like on every show for like 2 weeks trying to raise her name ID, and thought that they would be able to get somebody that would play ball with the system a quick congressional seat. That didn't play, and they recognized that, and she couldn't qualify for the ballot, so they had to kick her off, but they didn't want to set it up that somebody that wouldn't do business with them could take advantage of that open slate. So they kicked Robbie Starbuck off and basically rebooted the process so that they can handpick who goes in there. Am I dead wrong about that?
Steve, that's a very contentious topic. My county is in the 5th district. I think you're spot on, and it's interesting to me that from third party looking in, an outsider's perspective, that's what you're seeing. Because look, here's what we know. Whether it be the 5th congressional district or you just pick an issue in our state, nothing happens in our Republican legislature that is not first blessed by the governor and then blessed by the lieutenant governor and the Speaker of the House. In Tennessee, our lieutenant governor is our Speaker of the Senate. So unless you have the blessing of the speakers of each portion of our General Assembly, the bill's not passing. And it really doesn't matter how many people are for it. It really doesn't matter how many conservative organizations speak for or against. If you don't have the blessing of leadership in this state, it just doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's exactly what you're seeing play in.
So the two stories tie together, as I suspected, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is how we operate.
You had your reasons why you wanted to come on, which is to get this story out, okay? Let me tell you what my reasons for wanting to put you on are, other than the fact that's a really cool set behind you, all right? Because I want our audience to understand why we haven't had Ron DeSantis's in Tennessee, Kansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Wyoming, Idaho, all these red states where, I mean, you're almost ashamed, except in a couple of urban areas, to be described as a Democrat. And then in some of those states that don't have huge urban areas, they don't even know what a Democrat is. And yet, here we have a state that is one of the most contentious swing states in the country. And a guy and a team of people get elected that actually have the will to follow through on things, and they're about to turn that state in less than one term redder than Texas. And ironically, the Republican Party is the biggest beneficiary of this. There's been a 300,000 voter swing from registered Democrats to registered Republicans since Ron DeSantis took over. You would think they would be celebrating this, right? Okay, yep. You'd think other Republican states would be like, wow, this is the path to victory. And yet they're not. And here's a state like yours that was red long before Florida got recognized as a red state at about 18 months ago. All right. And this is why and I think our audience, they need to understand, Gary, the infrastructure that's in place in all of these various red states. The spirit of the age didn't just say, hey, we're only going to just sign up Democrats. The spirit of the age ain't dumb. They're not like us. They don't sit around and sweat out election outcomes. They've got people working both sides of the street. And so no matter who wins, it's just a magnitude of who plays ball to what magnitude and to what degree. And that's what you guys are going up against right now, and you're living through it firsthand. And I wanted our audience to hear a first-person testimony of this.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And it's important to make the point again, in a super majority Republican state this year in our legislative session, we could not pass a bill that would actually keep pornography and obscene materials out of our public schools. We couldn't do it, couldn't get it done. We could not pass a bill that would allow employees and consumers to make their own medical decisions to decide if they wanted a vaccine or not. We couldn't get that passed. We couldn't pass a patient's rights bill where people have a right to have visitors, even if they have COVID in the hospital. We couldn't pass a parents' rights bill. We could not pass any election integrity efforts. All of these measures this year in this General Assembly died in committee, never even made it to the floor. So look, we have a huge establishment problem in Tennessee, and I think grassroots conservatives across the country need to wake up and get active. And we've got to take this party back, or we've got to do something, because look, the folks in control, they know what they're doing. And it's like you said, man, I honestly, I don't know what the answer is. I can't understand why the Republican Party at large can't look at Florida and realize the path they're taking, it's the win. If you want to increase and embolden the Republican Party, you engage the grassroots conservatives and they'll come out and support you. We're seeing it happen in Florida. I don't know why we can't figure that out here in Tennessee.
People want to follow what's going on or learn more about you and your organization, Gary. How do they do that?
Check out TennesseeStands.org, TennesseeStands.org. We're on every bit of social media. And of course, love for you to check out GaryHumbleForSenate.com. We're going against the grain here in Tennessee.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, brother.
You bet. Gentlemen, your thoughts.
Gary is dead right about Florida and the win. But what's plaguing Tennessee is what plagued Governor Noem up in South Dakota. It's the same thing. It's Chamber of Commerce interests that are in no way tethered to the what has been understood as the foundational moral underpinnings of the Republican Party. Those, we know those are wink and nod for a very, very long time. But now it's not even a wink and a nod. It's just flat out saying, yeah, we don't agree with those things at all. If they are prioritizing, even in states like South Dakota and Tennessee, that we don't pass the things Gary talked about. We are just simply cutthroat ministers of spreadsheets, and that means human beings are nothing more than widgets to these people. And so that's why this is why the point about Texas yesterday. Sooner or later, Texas is going to be a toss-up state.
I agree. If they keep tenderizing the meat like that, I agree. Because what we're really describing here is just, Aaron, is really just low tax, a low tax version of what the spirit of the age wants, and a minor version of it, but you can also have private gun ownership.
I'm fiscally conservative, but morally liberal. It's the same nonsense.
This game hasn't ended.
Texas going purple or toss-up, guys, that's going to be the best thing for Texas, actually. I at least I believe so, because it'll clarify once and for all if there is a groundswell, a grassroots of people who are truly capable of organizing and putting together something that resembles what Florida is doing right now. And Todd's point about how the establishment GOP, really just the swamp, they're the unibrow, as our friend Shannon likes to call them. It's a perfect picture of how they see you, especially on the Republican side. You're just chattel. You're just there to be a good little boy or little girl.
Show up and shut up and vote.
Shut up and vote. Yep. That's all you're worth to them. And we'll give you lower taxes and gut rot. That's what. So until the apparatus is truly punished, whether it's by their own citizens or whether it's by the other side because they have so depressed their own base, you're going to keep getting this over and over and over again. So I think I think some of these deep red states like Tennessee and Texas starting to go purple. I know we're not talking about that with Tennessee, but with Texas, that could actually be a very good thing. A very good thing, at least in the long run. The problem is, as we've talked about before and we talked about last segment, I don't know how long a run we have.
Yeah, I don't have any long-term analysis anymore. I just don't. Man, on a day-to-day basis, I come to work and talk about things that 3 or 4 or 5 years ago I would have never envisioned. I didn't even know what they were. Guys, do you think I knew what a coronavirus was in 2018 or 19? I had no idea what it was. Didn't care. It wasn't a part of what I got into this business to do.
You sat next to and hired an anti-vaxxer. How often did you ever ask me about it?
Yeah, it was almost never ever discussed.
No.
Okay. It's just, I mean, the level of devolution here is at such a swift and rapid pace that I just don't think, here's the long-term plan, man. Survive. We're like in an NCAA tournament mode. You don't start March Madness contemplating your path to the national championship game. You start by, I got to win the next game. Survive in advance, survive in advance. So along those lines, I'm going to walk you through my own personal interaction with the spirit of the age, because I think it's instructive if you're a pastor, if you're a parishioner, if you're a patriot. This is going to be a very instructive conversation, I think, for you to know what you're up against. Next. Back with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todd Erzin, Aaron McIntyre, and all of you. Email the show, steve@stevedeace.com. You can also look for us on Facebook, MeWe, Parler, and Gab. Follow us at Steve Deace Show on Twitter and Getter. Get clips of the show at rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. And don't forget, if you're a podcast listener, if you haven't yet done this, please consider leaving us a 5-star review if you like us. And then also hitting the subscribe and follow button. We want to thank each and every one of you that have done one of those things for us already. I want to thank Built Bar for making the absolute greatest protein bar of all time. It can be a snack, it could be a meal replacement, a protein supplement, all of the above. And it does so absolutely deliciously. All right. All flavors covered in real chocolate, loaded with protein, packed with flavor, not packed, though, with carbs and calories and sugar. It has the taste of a candy bar. In fact, they've got some flavors, the chocolate chip cookie dough and coconut brownie chunk and mint brownie, just to give you a few examples of the flavors of Built Bar, are better than just about any actual candy bar I've tried, except these things have real nutritional value. Don't make the choice between health and flavor and taste any longer when you go with our friends at Built Bar. Go to built.com, B-U-I-L-T. That is the website for Built Bar, built.com, B-U-I-L-T. Get 15% off right now when you use the promo code DEACE, D-E-A-C-E, my last name. That's the promo code to get 15% off at Built Bar over at built.com. So for Theology Thursday, I had lunch with, I want to take a 1-week break from Scott Atlas's book. And it's not just because even I need a break, because I do. But that book, it's an onslaught.
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought this would be the perfect time for us to have a conversation about going on offense. Just as a little break from what it looks like when we are completely on defense and don't even try offense, which is the entire Scott Atlas book, right?
I got to say, because I'll forget it by next time, but the chapter we were supposed to discuss, it may have been titled, "Have I made it clear by now that Debbie Burks is terrible?"
Yes.
That's pretty much it.
Yes. So I had lunch with my pastor yesterday, and we talked for a couple of hours about a lot of things, and just a private conversation amongst friendly believers. But one part of that conversation I want to relay to you guys that we were just discussing the church, culture, where we're at in history, just kind of, a general, session of discussion. And we got into, and I thought he made a great analogy when he said, when I got into the ministry in the 80s, so he just turned 60, I believe. When I got into the ministry in the 80s, the discussion was about people had the wrong operating system. They were operating in a sin-based system or a false religion-based operating system, using a computer analogy, okay? He goes, what I see now is people don't have an operating system. They're trying to, make assumptions based on the acknowledgement of some variation of objective fact or truth that you would start previous conversations with in other eras. It's just not there. The critical thinking's not there. And one of the things, listening to him describe this, I said, you know, what you're describing, and I want to share this with all of you. What you're describing is that if you were a pastor in America in any other era until now, you would have tried to reach your community that your ministry was planted in before or after they had fallen prey to destructive behaviors. Sin. Right? We tend to want our sinful desires satiated, and then we will concoct or reverse engineer some form of philosophy or theology to justify that the fact or validate that it was okay. When we can't do that, we then fall into further acts of self-medication, addictions, things of that nature, in order to cover both the wounds that caused us to act out in sin and then the shame we feel for it afterwards, and this destructive cycle. And how do I break free of this, right? It's one of the reasons why over the years on this show, we've interviewed numerous people that have left homosexuality behind, and they all have the same thing in common. The gospel was the instrument that propelled them out of that pit, because they had these desires. They then acted on these unnatural desires. And now, though, the shame either becomes so much that they get into drugs and everything else with it, or they concoct a false theological narrative to validate it. That's a lot of what we've seen in the culture war for the last couple of decades, right? And I pointed out to him, here's how things have changed. You're no longer trying to reach people before they engage in destructive behaviors or after they are, so that you can rescue them from that pit. You're trying to stop people from destructive belief. Not that the effect of the belief is destructive. The effect that I had these same-sex desires and I believe I have to act on them, and if I don't, then I'm not being my real self. And then I concoct a belief system to justify the act, right? Mm-hmm. The beliefs themselves are destructive. Not the effect of them, but the intent of them from the outset are destructive. So we were talking about last hour with the grooming. The intent of believing this is destruction. And I want to spread this destruction. I have an appetite for destruction. It's not just the title of a Guns N' Roses album any longer. I want you to share in this destruction. And if you don't, well, then you're just a terrible person. This has changed the way we evangelize or even just engage politically and socio-culturally and philosophically as a people. This also explains why, when there are people who have engaged in the destructive behaviors that the spirit of the age used to affirm, and then they are still succumbing to those behaviors and desires, but refuse to go so far as to embrace the destructive beliefs. Follow me now. I'm preaching, okay? When they refuse to go to the next level of, I will now affirm your meaning my behaviors may lead to my personal destruction, but I'm not signing up for the collectivist destruction of your beliefs. Those have to be stopped. If I refuse to do that, I'm not gay anymore. I'm not blankety blank any longer. I'm not a feminist anymore. See my point? Mm-hmm. I have to embrace the destructive beliefs. It's not just enough any longer to embrace the destructive behaviors. And people will embrace destructive beliefs when they are empty slates, empty vessels. Critical thinking. This is what we were talking about last week, the difference between pagan and demonic. Even in pagan cultures, there was honor. There was meritocracy. It often led to bloodshed. No, I'm the new king. I'm the new chief, right? But those God-given encoded instincts within our imago Dei were there. They were totally warped and bastardized by their pagan belief system, but the instincts were there still. They couldn't escape the image in whose image they were made, even if they had no idea who this unknown God was or had rejected him. We aren't doing that any longer. Meritocracy, that's racist. I'm not male or female. We're no longer seeking to engage in a self-delusion or deception of taking the characteristics that God made us with and using them to fuel and feed our sinful desires. We don't want the characteristics at all. I'm not even tempted to abuse sex. I'm just going to be a shut-in and not go to approach women at all. And create an entire internet community of this. See the difference?
Oh, yeah.
The belief in it of itself, the behavior used to be, the sinful behavior was destructive. But the reason we fell for the temptation is because it was rooted in a need or a God-given need, characteristic, or desire. It's just our sin warped that and then caused us to behave in pursuit of that desire or need or trait in destructive ways. We're now talking about beliefs themselves intent on meant for destruction. You need to smash the stained glass windows alongside me. We've gone from Muslims taking over the old Catholic cathedrals of Europe and putting the crescent there and claiming them as their own to now we're just nihilist. We're going to burn them to the ground like they never existed. I cannot tell you how many horror films are being made. It started with Paranormal Activity about 10 years ago. How many horror movies are being made now about the demonic realm? Acknowledging that transcendence exists, but a righteous spiritual realm as an answer to it is never even considered. We're on our own. The only transcendence acknowledged now is hell and down below. There is no transcendence acknowledged from up above.
The only reality is that there isn't one.
That's exactly right. And so I had a conversation, and I don't know what he's doing now. I've not heard the name Roland Martin in several years. Used to be around on BET and CNN. Used to kind of be a Tavis Smiley kind of critical thinking, black intellectual liberal. I don't know what he's doing anymore. I do know he's got 600% more Twitter followers than me, so he must be doing something, okay? Must have some audience, all right? But the other night, he tweeted out a picture, and it was a picture of him on a plane, allegedly. I don't even know if this is real, okay? Or it was a picture taken before or the same day, who knows, all right? But he wrote, and this was after the federal court ruling in Florida getting rid of the mask mandate. I don't give a damn what some grossly unqualified Donald Trump judge said. I'm double masked and wearing goggles in the Nashville to DC flight. I had COVID in December. Y'all can kiss my ass about me not wanting it again, and any fool saying they don't matter is a damn liar. Okay? I saw this picture and responded thusly. Pictured what's happened to American manhood. By the way, his entire face is not even covered, right? I mean, you look at how small the particles of the virus are. They could just get right through that side area there that's totally exposed between the mask, the double mask, and the goggles. You see my point?
As it has always been.
Yeah, he's not even hermetically sealed. He's not even protected in what he is wearing. Okay, but he apparently saw this and then started to rant at me. And I want you to look at these rants, all right? Hey, Steve Deace Show, was Bob Enyart a man? Now, I actually knew Bob Enyart many years ago. I lost track of him. He was a pro-life warrior. He did die of COVID. I mean, just my career took me in different directions, and you're close to people in a certain season, and you're not any longer. But Bob Enyart was a pro-life conservative talk show host in Denver, Colorado. What about Todd Tucker? I don't know who Todd is. I'm sure he was a great dude. Another conservative talker dead of COVID. How about Dick Farrell? Again, I don't know who that is. Phil Valentine was a big-time syndicated talker based out of Nashville. He was dead of COVID as well. Now, see, the implication is here, of course, this. You know what? We'll get to the implications in a moment. Let's just continue through this. Shall we go on, Steve Deace Show? You right-wing MAGA idiots are stupid, and so are the fools who listen to you. You punks claim to be pro-life, but tell me about those conservative talkers that are dead due to COVID. Herman Cain? ? Add him to the conservative talker dead of COVID list. Next. come on, Steve Deace show. And then he started bringing in some guy named Matt Murphy. Poor Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh got roped into this. Maybe they commented on him too. I don't know. All right. Please, by all means, tell me about conservative preacher Bishop Harry Jackson, who beat cancer but died of COVID. You think his family regrets going maskless at the Amy Coney Barrett mass spreader event? I think that's where this is going with the next tweet. Aaron, can you go to the next one, please? At the White House. Yeah, I said it. You idiots can try to mock all day, but there are families of those dead conservative talkers who wish they'd never listened to fools like you. Now, keep in mind, he has already admitted that he's taken all their safety precautions and still had a nasty case of COVID despite the precautions anyway. He admitted this first before he started down this road. Keep this in mind. Finally, he concluded with this. See, Steve Deace show, a smart man doesn't endanger his family, doesn't leave them without a father, husband, uncle, cousin, provider. No, y'all just love to lead your idiot listeners down the path of stupidity. I don't give a damn about any of you fake-ass family values. He doesn't care so much that he sent me a 5-tweet thread. So, this is how I responded this morning. And I want to walk you through this and why I did it this way. Okay? So when I responded to him, do you have those?
One moment.
Okay. Here we go. So he put up a tweet from the Adams guy. What's his first name? Jerome Adams. Okay. All right. From Jerome Adams, who was Trump's Surgeon General. All right. Saying why he's going to continue to wear a mask on his Delta flight, despite the court ruling, and everybody else should still wear a mask, blah, 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 blah. So the implication is, because this guy worked for an administration that I voted for, I should not think for myself or have any of my own ideas or any of my own values. I should just go in lockstep with him. That's essentially the fallacy that's being asserted here. Here's how I responded to that, okay? He said, are you calling Jerome Adams? Are you going to trash him? My answer, yes, I am, actually. I'm going to do that. Because Adams is a complete and total fool. I don't care if he was even once an apostle. There's always a Judas. See, unlike you, I don't live by an identity politic. This is an extension of his identity politics. And he's just transcended this beyond race and into everything else, okay? I don't live by identity politics. I live by truth. And in my feed, there's up-teen data that shows masks don't work. I also sent him a link. If you click on that link, by the way, it is Jerome Adams at the beginning of the pandemic telling people to stop being stupid and wearing masks against coronavirus because they don't work. That's what that link was to. All right. Next, I also reminded him all of your protections did nothing to stop you from getting a nasty case of COVID by your own admission. So who leans even harder into the idols that didn't help them before? I'll give you a hint. Not someone who is a critical thinker, but another word that starts with the letter C. And that word is? You're in a cult, dude. You're in a cult. Breathe the free air again. Be a man again. Check your vitamin D levels. Eat better. Work out. Because over 80% of COVID hospitalizations are either morbidly obese or vitamin D deficient. Give up on identity politics in all forms. Follow the truth. Now, I have given him a very specific stat. He could question that. Ask my source for that. Right?
Yes.
He could counter it. Okay? Here's how he chose to come back. Let's see. Shall we get medical advice from an actual doctor like Jerome Adams or right-wing bloviator Steve Deace show? Tell me how the families of those 5 right-wing conservative talk show hosts who died of COVID are doing, Steve. Have you checked on them? If not, shut the bleep up. Again, this is a fallacy. Okay? Yes.
May I? This tweet brings us full circle to his original tweet, where he's a left-wing bloviator lecturing people about what to do medically in the face of what has now been recommended to do. So what exactly is his standard?
Well, we're about to find out, okay? So I concluded with another thread, okay? Here's how I responded. I flipped his premise back against him. Let's see, should we listen to medical advice from just one side that keeps prescribing things that have proven that they don't work and may even cause harm? Or should we listen to people like a Peter McCullough, MD, or a Pierre Corey, MD, say, I've got doctors too.
Sure.
I can make appeals to authority too, and so many others for a second opinion. And then I asked him, hey, have you bothered to check in on those harmed by the jab or lockdowns? Have you had them on your show? Have you checked in on them at all? Let's continue on in that thread. I said, last year, this was a #1 bestseller. It has more footnotes than pages. Be a truth seeker. Read it. Try to discredit it. I invite him. Try to discredit it. If you can't, be freed by it. The truth sets us free from a spirit of fear and unsound mind. You don't have to live like this. Next, you have come at me now with numerous rants, none of them offering any data, any facts, any truth whatsoever. None. Just false appeals to authority while rejecting counter authorities, guilt by association. If you ever said MAGA or voted MAGA, you couldn't possibly read or think for yourself. Boy, if I'd have thought that way, I'd have never gotten to know people like Naomi Wolf, Alex Berenson, on and on, the Pierre Corey, who's a man of the left, by the way. I've never gotten to know any of these people. But I didn't do that. I didn't do guilt by association. I followed the truth. And this is an extension of your identity politics. That isn't healthcare, let alone truth. That is a cult. Next. Kick Wormtongue to the curb, Theoden. Breathe the free air again. Be cautious, yes. But follow the data. I've helped thousands of people find professional treatment for COVID, thousands of them, which is deadly and serious. We've never underestimated that on this show. If anything, we thought it was being underestimated the other way. It's the solutions you've fallen for. They're what's not serious, nor are they solutions. Finally, the reason you look and sound ridiculous is because what you believe is ridiculous. You're not the hero of the story, you're its victim. You can either accept that and give up your victimology or continue to wallow in it, in which case you then cease being a victim. You're now a collaborator. And then I quoted Galatians 4:16. What does Paul say there in Galatians 4:16? Have I become your enemy because I tell you the truth? Then I had someone made this point to me who said, hey, if you want to make Roland Martin go away, shut up, and never say anything to you again, ask him, should biological men compete in women's sports? Ask this repeatedly. He won't answer and will scurry away so you won't have to.
Shocking.
Shocking, indeed. But here's the thing. Because we're dealing now with no longer political debates, but spiritual political manifestations of spiritual cultic beliefs, I replied this way. I don't want him to go away just yet. First, I want to see if him and many others made in God's image, caught in the trap of this demonic spirit of the age, can be freed from it. Then, if it becomes obvious they prefer the pit, dust will be kicked from sandals. So then I waited. I looked for the next couple of hours, and all he did was respond with variations of a-hole and other pejoratives. Again, no facts, no counters, nothing. So at that point, I did the Twitter equivalent of dust from sandals and just muted him, so then I would move on. Now, understanding that he was already given over to identity politics before this already began, and so he was already being, remember we've talked about COVID is not an outlier, it's a harvest. People like Roland Martin had already been groomed to accept that compliance was the highest order of citizenship. He'd already been groomed, okay? So he was already prepared to accept a narrative from the group that he identified with, whether it was true or not. Did I expect him to actually look at our book?
No.
No. But I offered it to him nevertheless,
yes.
Right? Did I expect him to counter with any facts or truth?
No.
No. Because I've seen his work before, and I've debated people like him on national television dozens of times. So I knew it was highly unlikely that unless God was specifically at work in Roland Martin in this way, that I could reach him, okay? So why did I do this? A, just in case I might have been wrong about those things, because I'm not God, am I?
No.
Can I read other people's hearts?
No.
Can I read other people's consciences?
No.
No. So is it likely I was right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it certain that I was? No.
No.
So the only way I would find out is what?
Well, iron sharpening iron.
Yeah. So I did this. Let's find out if he's reachable. Yeah. Let's find out. That's A. I don't know for sure. A. Okay. B. I think that I needed to provide you in the audience a first person back and forth testimonial I'm involved in for you to see what I'm talking about. And what I'm talking about and how to respond to this. I'm confrontational, not disrespectful, but I'm confrontational. But I'm also giving him an out. I'm respectfully confrontational, not taking any of his BS on any level at all. and I'm calling him on it. But I'm not out to destroy him. I'm out to destroy the shibboleth that's imprisoning him. Now, in the end, if he won't let me pry it from his cold, dead fingers, he has made his choice. I have fulfilled my obligation, which is C. I fulfilled my obligation. I'm here to deliver a message, not fashion and guarantee an outcome. I'm not a sovereign being. So I'm just here to deliver a message. So I accomplished C. And then there's D. Between him and I's combined social media audiences, what are the odds there's at least one person who's kind of on the edge of realizing, what am I doing here? What am I believing here? See my point?
Yeah.
But they were just looking to see if are there objective reasons for why I think this might be wrong? And that might be sellable, might be persuadable. And now I'm using him as a platform to reach a wider audience beyond him. At the same time, I'm trying to reach him. We've checked all 4 of those boxes. I didn't give him his premise at all. I gave him no quarter, no ground whatsoever. I didn't accept any of his fallacies on any level at all. I didn't debate my ideas versus his, because his ideas aren't rooted in any fact or truth. So I've got to introduce the truth before we even get to what my ideas of those of what that truth means. We even get to that point. See, we used to debate what we thought our ideas of that truth meant. We're not there anymore. We got to debate what is the truth now. I'll get you guys' thoughts on this here in a minute after I tell you about our friends over at Home Title Lock. Uncertainty, like the war in Europe right now, is exactly what a lot of identity thieves who frankly come from foreign countries, this is exactly the uncertainty they're looking for, especially with American homeowners. Our home values have gone up quite a bit over the last few years. Our home deeds are kept online. That's the only thing we have that proves we own them, and they're in all too often hackable databases. These foreign identity thieves go there, make it look like you've sold your home to them on a quick claim deed. They start taking out loans or liquidating against your equity, and you often won't find out until the kinds of things show up in the mailbox or your inbox you never want to see. All right. That's where our friends at Home Title Lock come in. They can help protect you when your mortgage lender and your homeowner's insurance cannot. Check them out at HometitleLock.com. Register your address right now. Find out if you're already a victim and you don't even know it when you head over to HometitleLock.com. All right. Thoughts?
Well, yeah, you owe it to these people as a follower of Christ to show them exactly the nature of their prodigal son status. They'll never turn around and go home to the Father unless they understand that they are swimming in animal feces. They're actually, that's their food, literally.
They're on the pig pods.
Yeah.
Yep.
And listen, again, you're called as a Christian in all things on some level to be uncomfortable. Go to Nineveh. Going to Nineveh, in this case, meant Steve making this guy uncomfortable. And that, by extension, even though Steve and I are like more comfortable with this kind of thing with most people, it doesn't mean we wouldn't rather be doing other, more relaxing things. But we're called to this. You are called to engage with the Roland Martins in your life. They're all over the place. Please do not think that because you don't have a show that they aren't there. You're lying to yourself. You just don't want to do this. You have to. Otherwise, you will be living more and more, and you already are, in Roland Martin's world.
And you will sentence your children to have to confront these sorts of instincts violently, because that's how the history book always ends, okay? If we do not get more comfortable with the kind of confrontation you're talking about peaceably, you are going to sentence your children and grandchildren to have to confront these instincts. They're not going away. You're going to force them to confront this in another era that's not too far down the road violently. Aaron.
Yeah, and I think this was most of the time, if this type of confrontation happened in real life, you know immediately that there is, at some level, some questioning about one's own motives. In other words, I believe conversations like this don't happen because people just don't have the confidence in their own beliefs to actually confront or be confronted with them face to face. So that's why they hide behind the keyboards. I think it was Mr. T. It was that rule, that thing that he dropped a couple of years ago. That too many people feel way too comfortable. Ice-T, I'm sorry. Ice-T.
No, Mr. T's still masking up.
Yeah, well,
we lost him to the spirit of the age too.
Yeah, Ice-T. It's that. So I would just say, on the online sphere, if people come to you in bad faith, auto mute. People come back like that. Try to engage for a little bit. Never give up the premise.
3 non-political questions will be next. Stay tuned. The 3-week rule could be some of the best financial advice you'll ever get if you practice it with our friends over at ScoreMaster. Why wait 3 weeks? Well, this isn't like COVID. Just wait 2 weeks. No. If you wait 3 weeks, that's about, on average, how long it takes a ScoreMaster user to raise their credit score about 60 points. Because they give you the transparent information on you that you deserve to have, right? I mean, a lot of your credit card companies will give you a credit score now, for free that you can check all the time. But will they show you exactly why you have that score? And then furthermore, will they show you exactly how to get to the score that you want, what you need to do, a plan of action and help you navigate it? I used ScoreMaster last fall to help me get to the score I wanted to get to an obscenely low interest rate for our refi. So I've seen firsthand how it can work. Now you can do the same as well. Try ScoreMaster for free and see how many plus points that you can add to your credit score and how long when you go to scoremaster.com/Steve. scoremaster.com/Steve. Let's get to 3 non-political questions.
We all have questions.
Who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? Who am I? A search and a question of identity. Why am I here? A question of meaning and purpose. Where am I going? Question of destiny.
Some better than others.
What sort of morality or proto-morality would you expect to find in a chimpanzee troop?
Injecting some levity into the demise of Western civilization. It's 3 questions on the Steve Deace Show.
Yeah, for about the first time in, I think, 2 or 3 editions of 3 non-political questions, I did not have 3 questions ready to go this morning. I did have them ready to go before the show, but not this morning. So the quality of these questions is probably
on par with what we're used to.
On par with what you. Thank you. Expectations low. I appreciate that. Question, because then I don't have to work as hard. Question number 1: if there was one thing in the Bible, historically or theologically, that's not clear to you, that you could have it answered right away, right now, what one thing would that be?
End of days. What is, I don't, when I say that, I don't mean it's not my place to know the time and the hour. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. What I'm talking about is what is Jewish apocalyptic idioms and metaphors written by a Jewish writer in the case of both John the Apostle in Revelation and Daniel, for example, in the Old Testament. So these are references and colloquialisms and euphemisms that would have been understood by that time period. So so that we're understanding them properly. What is meant to be taken futuristically? What if anything was written almost as a cipher, if you will, because it was written at a time of deep Roman persecution, and so some of these may be references that are coded references to Rome and what was happening at that time in church history. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's what how to rightly divide that work. That's what I would ask. Okay, because the thing I feel the strongest about as a Christian are the bookends. In the beginning, God made, and it was good. In the beginning, man sinned, and we are bad. And that's why we need a savior. We need a Messiah, because we can't close the chasm that exists between us and a holy God. In the end, that Messiah returns. And judges the nations and distributes ultimate justice and wipes the tear from every eye. What I struggle with beyond my own sinfulness, but I'm not struggling with that from a theological perspective. I'm struggling with that in my flesh, okay? What I struggle with theologically, and I wonder about, is if I'm giving you, for example, with the platform that I have and the calling that I have on my life to do this for a living, for example, am I offering the right threat level or too much or too little? And a true and rightful dividing of that work would help me to better understand the answer to those questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, for example, is it possible that we're living in a futuristic, left behind kind of end of days right now? If that's the case, well, then we should actually, if we think that that's more likely, there should be a more direct evangelistic approach to our show because the time is short. Soon the door will be shut, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If what we're living in is more of a representation, if the beast that comes out of the sea is the city of man, as Augustine saw it, and the church is the city of God, and that these are two entities that just essentially vie for dominion and supremacy back and forth through time, these two kingdoms until Christ returns, well, then we're really more talking about something on a culture war level where evangelism is still important, but it's not like exclusive. Like the time is running short. Judgment is going to come from on high. Try to reach as many people do you see my point?
Yeah.
Because I'm not explicitly an evangelist. I'm not explicitly a pastor. I do a show whose intent is to reach a broad audience. I want to reach that broad audience with a specific message, but am I using the time that I have as the most wisely, with the right understanding of the threat level for the times in which we live? That's what a better, understanding of eschatology would help me have.
Beyond being theory-driven and what you do for a living, I just think that was so incredibly Dacian. The more and more we talk, because you talked about wanting, there was a question about this, about wanting to know the future if you could recently, and it's clear, it's based on your upbringing. And this is your need to know the truth. And I think this has to do with why you actually like gambling besides the sports aspect. It's trying to master the unknown as much as possible.
Trying to game the future.
Because,
yes, I agree. Yeah.
And I didn't have, my unknowns didn't cause the level of havoc in my past that yours did. So I don't feel called to that. I just think that was really interesting. Mine would be that, listen, most of the history of the Bible in terms of the amount of time that takes place in just the first 11 chapters of Genesis.
Yeah.
But it would be
this is mine as well.
A fleshing out of the full history. Like, for example, the end of the creation story, man and female were created, tells one version of that. But then when you have Adam and Eve, it's male and female created. But between that is a lot of the creative trying to find the companion. They're both trying to tell different theological stories, but the actual history that happened, which some of us were meant to look through a class darkly, but it would be fascinating to know.
See, that's mine as well, Todd, because I trust that even in heaven, that the presence of our Maker will overshadow any of the mysteries that we feel compelled to wonder about today. I still, in my flesh, though, hope that we get some of these answers and get like a documentary series in heaven about all of this as well. I would settle just for the history of the garden.
Is there an NFL Films vault in heaven? Because I'm spending a good deal of eternity there.
I would settle just for the history, like the actual fleshed out, black and white history of the Garden of Eden, but I would love to see from the garden, from the fall to Noah. I think that would be incredible to kind of flesh out in and of itself.
All right, before we get to question 2, we don't have a lot of chances these days to not do business with woke corporations or causes that hate us, because that's pretty systemic in corporate America these days. One place where we do, though, and it's with a business that we kind of all have to use access to because We need one. It's called a mobile phone. And that's where our friends over at Patriot Mobile come in. They're America's only, well, really American mobile phone carrier. They offer the same nationwide coverage as the major ones do because everybody pretty much uses the same towers. But they offer a fully American customer service team who speak in a way that you can actually understand. They get things done like they did for my family when we made the switch from T-Mobile to Patriot Mobile last fall. If you're a veteran or first responder, let them know they've got bigger savings in store for you as a way of saying thanks. For the rest of us, get a free activation with the offer code Steve right now when you make the switch at patriotmobile.com/Steve or call them at 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT, or patriotmobile.com/Steve.
Question number 2. We've talked ad nauseum about all the problems with college and professional sports. My question is, what is the objectively good thing about each major sports league, whether it's professional or college football, college basketball?
Even in their declining state, because nothing, when you have a systemic, what can the righteous do when the foundations fail, right? That's what the Bible says. They can't be immunized from a systemic decline and collapse of a culture. They just can't. Because the people that will go to work in the commissioners and league offices and on the field stem from that exact same culture. And yet, even despite that influence, they remain one of the last truly meritorious venues of applied and celebrated excellence left in America. That would be my answer.
For every single league.
Yeah.
I was just going to go league by league, but that's a good answer regardless.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for experience, I was in the University of Arkansas, or in Fayetteville this weekend, and had that weekend where the incoming freshman class for soccer, my daughter's soccer class, was all there. And the parents were at this meeting over dinner Friday night, and he laid out, this is what this program is about. This is why we are here. And one of the things he said to the entire group, as he said to my daughter and us on an official visit, because we had a concern about her doing 2 sports and she'll miss some time in the other ones, will she have a fair shot? Because that's all that my daughter wanted. And he put it this way. He said, listen, I don't care if you slashed my tires last night. If you can help me win, you'll play. Now, I know this guy. This guy does not mean go be a criminal. Nothing like that. He chose a severe example to say, this is nothing but fair. We are about excellence on the soccer field. And he went out of the way to even say, he said, we're a soccer team. We're not a family. He said, I care about you as an individual. We're going to have a lot of fun together, but we're going to keep very clear why we're here. There's not going to be any nonsense, no drama, no nothing. We are going to choose excellence on the soccer field as our number one priority. And if you want to be a part of that, that's a dream, because there's a lot of drama in club soccer. Trust me, that's what all sports is supposed to be fundamentally about.
Those are good answers. You both went in a different direction than what I intended, so I'll kind of go in the direction I intended. NBA, it's the playoffs, because everybody's actually giving 100% effort, unlike the rest of the season, and it's incredible. That's true. It's incredible.
It is a completely different sport.
Yeah, and that I actually enjoy watching the NBA in the postseason. Major League Baseball, no matter if you go way into the luxury tax or you play small ball like Kansas City did, the Royals did a few years ago, winning the World Series. No matter what style of play or strategy, you still have to get 9 innings and 3 outs per inning. I think that's still beautiful. I think in the NFL, it's the parity and the next level athleticism. Let's see, what other major professional? I'm skipping hockey. I don't really watch hockey. College football, I think 50 to 60% of the teams any given Saturday could beat each other. And then college basketball, it's obviously the tournament.
I tell you, there's nothing like Game 7 of a Stanley Cup playoff series in overtime, where any idle thing could happen, any idle bounce, and the ice is kind of chewed up after 60 minutes of play and everything else. There's nothing like that. It's like an NCAA tournament round in one game. You know what I'm saying? Every play is survive and advance. Every single play. There's nothing like it. Trying to sell your home in any environment can be a challenge, but especially during these unprecedented times. Make sure you find yourself an agent that you'll be recommending to your friends and family one day, like I did. I recommended him to Aaron. And now Aaron will probably be recommending my buddy Scott to other people, I would imagine, in the future. after he took him through the process. You are looking for that kind of an agent. Where would you find them? Well, the name kind of says it all. Head over to realestateagentsitrust.com. It's a company started by Glenn Beck and some of his associates. Why? Because, well, you guessed it. They ran into agents they found out they couldn't trust. So don't let that happen to you. They don't want it to. That's why we urge you to check out the website, realestateagentsitrust.com. Again, that's realestateagentsitrust.com. Final question.
What is the best decade for both film and television? I'll start.
Combined together?
Yeah.
I'm leaning to the 70s.
The 70s? Really?
Jaws, The Omen, Exorcist, Star Wars, The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, Chinatown.
Those are all films, right?
Yes. And
TV
then
shows.
TV shows. You would have had All in the Family, The Jeffersons, Dallas would have debuted in that era. I'm missing a whole bunch of TV shows too, so forgive me because I went right to the movies right away because that's where my mind is at with what's going on in my life right now. But I think the 70s, you could make an argument for the 70s, I think.
Yeah, when he first said that, I thought that was crazy. But
what were you thinking?
I really think like 2008 to 2018. I know.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. I'm babyface, okay?
Okay.
2008 to 2018. There are a ton of really high quality films and fun films and television shows combined.
I mean,
I'm thinking all the
MASH.
MCU.
Yeah.
MASH was in the 70s too. Yeah. I'm thinking MCU. I'm thinking TV shows like Breaking Bad and Mad Men, which I've never really watched Mad Men. I think, and again, I'm not saying these are great shows that you should watch, but like, wasn't Game of Thrones in that decade as well?
Yeah.
So things like the high quality, both and fun, both on television and film. I think 2008 to 2018.
Muppet Show, Different Strokes, Dukes of Hazzard. I don't know. The more I look at it, I mentioned MASH. The more I'm looking at it, I think I might say the 70s.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. I think the 80s to do that. I think movies, for different reasons, could hold up in terms of
Happy
quantity.
Days, Little House on the Prairie.
But yeah, I think television, there's not as much, and it's a little bit. I don't want to just rest on nostalgia. I think 70s is the correct answer.
See, you guys are just as guilty of being biased towards your generation as I am towards mine.
Well, if we're going to include television, though, you can't go any further back than the 50s. So there's almost no way to not be biased against your generation.
The quality in terms of production. I mean, this decade can't. I mean, that decade can't hold a candle to the last couple.
I think
stories matter, though.
I think if you watch some of the films that I mentioned, they actually kind of do hold up.
When was Lost's?
2004 to 2010. Yeah. John 3:17.